Hi, my name is Valentina Basave, and this is my honors project for Psychology 2306, otherwise known as Human Sexuality. This project is going to be on the prevalence of rape culture, and its factors and facts. This is for the semester of spring 2021. The topics that will be discussed in the presentation are a brief history of rape and sexual assault law, the factors and elements that come with rape, along with false beliefs of rape and sexual assault, and the prevalence and facts of these events that continue to exist today. And with that, I'm going to share some data and research and statistics that can be found in the textbook that we are using in this course. And along with this, I have to give a content warning about, of course, sexual assault and rape. If you're uncomfortable with that, then I would suggest you not continue reading through or hearing this presentation. Now we begin to go over the brief history of rape and sexual assault as it can be found in the past. Rape is present all the way back to ancient and Greek Roman mythology. As for ancient Greek mythology, women were often taken by male gods as punishment or signs of conquest, and a few examples of this were Europa, Hera, Leda, and Medusa. And in Medusa's case specifically, she was raped, and that's what resulted in her becoming Medusa, with her having snakes instead of hair. And this sculpture that I included specifically is actually now a sign of the feminism movement and of the Me Too movement, because usually paintings depict Medusa being held by Perseus, whereas this statue has Medusa holding the head of Perseus. And it became a big part of the Me Too movement when it began to become popular. And as for Roman mythology, this painting depicts the abduction, it is titled here, but it is regarded as the rape of the seven women. And this event was really just, and to quote the article I used here, forceful sexual violence perpetrated by Roman men. And this event is considered an important part of Roman history, but of course it is tragic as so many women were taken advantage of during this time. Now, as a crime, rape was very different in the past due to the different laws that existed, as explained by Schafran and Weinberger. They say neither man nor wife could be victims, and courts assumed that a woman who had said yes to any man other than her husband after their marriage would say yes to any man at the time. An example of these laws in action is when Mary Marsh, a young woman, accused a man of raping her, but he was acquitted after two male surgeons determined that there had been no penetration. Actually, this young woman in her testimony had stated that she felt something go in her after this man pinned her down. But because she did not explicitly use the word penetration, the defense and everyone else defending the rapist in that courtroom were able to misconstrue what she said to give her rapist the verdict of not guilty. In the textbook Our Sexuality by Crooks et al., which is the textbook I'm using this semester for this course, it has and examines the factors of rape. So one of the first is the psychological basis of rape. And to quote them, many researchers and clinicians view rape more as a product of socialization processes that occur within the fabric of a patriarchal society than as a product of the individual rapist's pathological condition. So it's not really just an individual person per person, or in this case, rapist per rapist. It's a system that causes people to be rapists. And there are many, many elements that play into this, such as examples, pornography, misogyny, and other elements such as that. And another element that contributes to the factors of rape is media. To quote, often fictionalized rape scenes begin with a woman resisting her attacker only to melt into passionate acceptance. Obviously, we know that this is not how it is in real life. Rape is a very traumatic experience for not just a woman, but anyone who has it happen to them in their lifetimes. And as for the characteristics of rapists, they usually have an inclination to violence. These men are usually men who live by male gender roles, and they are usually self-centered. And to quote, anger and a need to express power appear to predominate stranger rape, whereas the desire for sexual gratification seems to predominate in acquaintance or date rape. To continue with the factors of rape, first I want to talk about the infographic that I included here that has statistics from a few different sources. 1 in 4 women are sexually assaulted in that lifetime, and of those women, only 1 in 6 will go to the police. And of these reported assaults, only 1 in 20 are false. And as for men, 1 in 6 men are sexually assaulted in their lifetime, and men who commit rape in their lifetime is 1 in 17. And only 6% of men commit 5 to 6 rapes each. Women from the ages 16 to 24 are the most commonly reported in the United States, and the younger the victim is, the more likely it is that the rapist wasn't a stranger, it was probably a friend, an acquaintance, or a family member. And women with a history of being in physically abusive relationships are more vulnerable to rape from their own partners. And the frequency of reported rape varies by culture. As for date rape drugs, many women are raped after they consume a date rape drug, like if something slipped in her drink, for example. And when these drugs are mixed with alcohol, as they often are, these drugs can cause reduced inhibitions and unconsciousness, which make a woman completely unable to consent to anything that is happening to her. Now to move on to false beliefs. A very big part of the reason that rape still exists because of misconceptions that are often, if not always, extremely toxic towards the progression of moving on from and hopefully someday eliminating rape. Some of these false beliefs are that women can't be raped if they really don't want to be, that women say no when really they mean yes, that many women will cry rape, that all women want to be raped because they see it as a fantasy, that rapists are obviously mentally ill, that the male sex drive is so high that men just can't control their urges, and that men can't be sexually assaulted. Of course, none of these are true because men are and they can be sexually assaulted, and men are capable of controlling themselves. And the reason that it's harmful to say that rapists are obviously mentally ill is because, 1, it portrays mentally ill people as rapists, and 2, it contributes to that false belief we just mentioned right now, that men cannot control their sexual urges, when that is not true. They have complete autonomy over what they do and what to say, so on and so forth. And rape is, for the most part, a woman's worst nightmare. No one wants to be raped. Even if it is a fantasy, it is still going to be consensual. And the fact that women cry rape is completely unfounded. As we previously discussed, very few rape allegations are false. Now for prevalence and facts. Rape has continued to exist or prevail due to the factors and false beliefs that were previously discussed. Crooks et al. From the textbook that I mentioned earlier discuss how rape prevails, and to do this they use data and statistics. Writers suggest that rape is the most underreported crime in the United States. 1 in 3 women have experienced sexual and or physical violence, usually at the hands of an intimate partner. To support this, I included an infographic from the World Health Organization that actually says 1 in 3 women worldwide have experienced this violence. And just over 5% of heterosexual high school students report that they have been physically forced to have sexual intercourse. These statistics are higher for queer kids because 24% of lesbian and bisexual girls have been physically forced to have sexual intercourse, with 16% of gay and bisexual boys having been physically forced to have sexual intercourse. As we can see, rape tends to plague everyone, of course, but it has more of an effect on certain minority groups, such as queer kids. Now to talk more specifically about college students who have been assaulted. These students are often victimized after the assault again by their institutions due to a lack of institutional support. Students who are deemed responsible for sexual assault often face little to no consequence, while the victims are left frequently in turmoil. Student victims of blame frequently describe a pervasive tendency to either subscribe to blame the victim attitude or to characterize the assault as a misunderstanding, which of course is very rarely the case. In 2014, a report came out that 55 colleges and universities were under federal investigations for mishandling sexual reports on campus. An example of this mishandling can be seen in the very recent film Promising Young Woman, which is about a young girl whose best friend was raped in medical school, and this event was witnessed by many of her classmates. This student went to her institution, and the institution did not assist very much, and while her rapist was taken to court, he did not receive any sentence or any punishment whatsoever. And the film also very heavily implies that this character killed herself. And this character's best friend now tries to bring justice for her many years later by reaching out to the people who either subscribe to the blame the victim mentality and to her rapist in order to bring justice to her best friend. Crooks et al. Also touch on sexual assault and rape in the military. 20,000 instances of unwanted sexual contact occurred in the U.S. military in 2013. 5% were active duty women and 1% were active duty men. A very recent example of this is the case of Vanessa Guillen, who was found murdered after she was sexually assaulted. And these author states, the doubts about the legitimacy of women's sexual misconduct allegations against men pervade our culture in deep and insidious ways. To read some tweets of women who were sexually assaulted in the military, to quote, this is not a new thing, but it's been silenced for so long. And another one says that she was locked up in a closet for reporting her rape and that she was blamed and shunned and that eventually she lost her career. And another woman says that she was told that she was being sexually assaulted just because she was new and that it would stop eventually. And she was threatened with dishonorable discharge for reporting it to her higher ups. As Schafran and Weinberger states, reforms have increased reporting, prosecuting, and convictions, but they have not eliminated rape myths from being a barrier to fairness at every stage of the criminal justice process. However, there has been progress in the form of changing laws, and these two authors state that some of these reforms include rape shield laws, that many less states have laws requiring evidence that confirms a sexual offense occurred. The word rape has been removed from many statutes, and the word rape is now replaced with terms such as sexual assault. Confidentiality of mental health records of the victim is pretty much guaranteed, and there is no more marital rape exemption. However, this photo I included is specifically talking about India, who still have marital rape exemption laws, and many states have been pressuring them not to do so, according to an article by NPR. Now to conclude, as with everything having to do with history, history has affected current rape law and culture. The rape culture and law of the past has resulted in many myths that were discussed earlier and the prevalence of rape and sexual harassment as a whole. And all of this is reflected in the rape factors that we discussed earlier that are present in modern day society. And all of these elements together combined have resulted in sexual harassment and rape still being something that exists, of course, and it being something that everyone can be affected by and is affected by. A common misconception is that only women are affected by rape, when this is not true, as earlier we stated that men can be raped, and rape is a result of the patriarchy, and the patriarchy is another whole huge issue that affects everyone in our present day society. However, thanks to the work of many individuals, progress has been made to decrease the barriers around reducing and possibly eliminating this social issue someday. Thank you very much for your time, and I hope you gained some perspective from this presentation.